Like, wow, this is amazing. I think he's gonna say this is the best documentary I've seen in a long time. Because you'll see people saying that. I mean, he might feel a different way about pieces and bits of it, but he knows the truth.
50 Cent posted 2 words that stopped the internet cold: surviving, T.I., and tiny. He deleted it almost immediately. But the internet had already seen it, screenshotted it, and started asking the same question. Is he actually serious? Because if that documentary becomes real, this feud stops being about rap entirely. It becomes something that could follow T.I. and Tiny for the rest of their careers. Here's how the situation got to this point, and why that deleted post might be the most dangerous thing 50 Cent has done in this entire beef. The tension between these two goes back to 2007, when T.I. was arrested on federal weapons charges connected to an attempt to purchase machine guns and silencers. He eventually served time, but what bothered 50 Cent, and what he kept bringing up in lyrics and interviews for years, was the sentence. The general feeling 50 hinted at repeatedly was that someone facing charges that serious receiving a relatively light outcome deserved questions. In hip-hop, even indirect accusations about cooperation with federal authorities can create beef that never fully dies. And this one never did. For years, it stayed in the background. Occasional references, indirect shots, nothing that exploded. Then Verzuz gave T.Y. what looked like a perfect opportunity to force a direct confrontation. He openly challenged 50 multiple times across interviews and social media, framing it as a catalog competition between two artists who dominated the same era. 50 brushed it off every single time. Jokes, silence, sarcasm. Ty eventually went public saying 50 had agreed to the battle and then backed out, calling it ducking the smoke. That comment spread fast, and 50 responded the way he usually responds. Not with music, but with a post. He put up an unflattering photo of Tamika Tiny Harris with a caption that read as a direct shot at T.Y. through his wife. The post was widely seen as crossing from rap beef into personal attack territory. Within minutes, it was everywhere. T.I. responded with music, but the first person to fully erupt wasn't T.I., it was his son. King Harris went live on Instagram almost immediately. What started as a defense of his mother escalated quickly into something that made even longtime hip-hop observers uncomfortable. King brought up 50 Cent's late mother, who was murdered when 50 was 8 years old, and posted images referencing her grave. Then, in a diss video connected to the beef, he appeared wearing a shirt with her face on it. The reaction was immediate and split. Some people said he was defending his mother's honor, which is something people instinctively understand. Others said going after a deceased parent is a line that exists for a reason, and that crossing it changes the energy of a conflict in ways that are hard to walk back. Even some supporters of the Harris family publicly said the shirt went too far. 50's public response was calculated silence mixed with memes. He didn't drop a diss track. He didn't address the deceased mother angle directly. He posted sarcastic content that made him look unbothered, which in a public feud is often more effective than appearing upset. But the real response was the documentary post. To understand why that title landed so hard, you need to know the history it was pointing at. In 2021, Sabrina Peterson, an entrepreneur who had a prior public conflict with the Harris family, made accusations about the couple that spread rapidly online. Her posts opened a floodgate. Over the following weeks, multiple other women came forward with allegations describing incidents they said took place over a span of years at private events and gatherings connected to T.I. and Tiny. Attorneys representing some of the accusers said more than 20 individuals had made contact. The allegations described situations where women said they were invited into private settings, felt pressured, and in some cases believed substances were involved that affected their judgment. Several incidents were alleged to have occurred across different states, which meant multiple jurisdictions could potentially be involved. Legal representatives sent letters to law enforcement agencies in California and Georgia requesting formal investigations. Authorities in Los Angeles reviewed some of the claims. The situation received major media coverage because of how serious the accusations were, but the legal path was complicated. Most of the alleged incidents had occurred years or over a decade earlier. In many cases, prosecutors determined the statute of limitations had expired, which meant criminal charges couldn't be filed regardless of how credible the claims might be. A civil lawsuit was eventually filed in 2024, but was later dismissed after the plaintiff stopped responding to court filings. T.I. and Tiny denied every allegation throughout the entire process. They released statements describing the claims as false and characterizing them as coordinated attempts to damage their reputation. No criminal charges have been filed against them in connection with any of those accusations. But in the court of public opinion, a legal dismissal and an emotional verdict are two different things. The allegations never fully disappeared from public memory. They just faded from the front page. Which is exactly what makes the documentary threat so precisely targeted. Before we get to what that threat actually means, it's worth understanding who 50 Cent has become as a media figure because it matters. Most people know him as a rapper, but over the last decade, he has quietly built himself into a serious television producer. His production company was behind the Power franchise, which became one of the most watched crime dramas on cable and spawned multiple spin-offs. He understands how to build a narrative, how to control a story arc, and how to keep an audience engaged across multiple episodes and seasons. That background is why the documentary threat isn't easy to dismiss as empty trolling. When someone with the resources, the industry connections, the production experience, and the direct motivation to damage a rival's reputation hints at a project, even in a post he deleted minutes later, people in the industry take it seriously, because 50 has actually done the work before. He knows what it takes to produce something that reaches millions of people. The title Surviving T.I. and Tiny was constructed to trigger a specific association. Surviving R. Kelly was a documentary series that reorganized years of existing allegations into interviews, timelines, and first-person accounts that millions of viewers watched and responded to emotionally. It didn't introduce information that wasn't already out there. What it did was give that information shape, sequence, and faces. The public response was massive and lasting. A documentary about the Harris family accusations would be attempting exactly the same thing with exactly the same ingredients. Existing allegations, potential interviews with accusers, and a production team motivated to make it compelling. Even the fact that the post was deleted almost immediately didn't diffuse it. The screenshot was already out. The conversation had already started, and 50 almost certainly knew that would happen. In today's media environment, a deleted post from someone with his following doesn't disappear. It spreads faster precisely because it was deleted, because people treat the removal as evidence of intent. The deliberate nature of the move is what makes it feel like a strategy rather than an impulse. T.I. hasn't ignored the possibility. During the back and forth online, he raised the idea of responding with a documentary of his own, doc for doc, in his words, suggesting he has material on 50 Cent that he could organize into a similar format. Whether that was a genuine counter-threat or a bluff designed to signal he isn't afraid isn't clear. But the fact that T.I. reached for the same weapon suggests he understands what the real stakes are in this format, because diss tracks have a shelf life. A record stays hot for a few weeks. Fans debate who won, streams go up, and then the next story takes over. Documentaries don't work that way. They get referenced for years. They get recommended to people who weren't following the original story. They become part of how someone is described in retrospective pieces and Wikipedia summaries. That permanence is the threat. Right now, no network has confirmed a documentary called Surviving T.I. and Tiny. No episodes exist. No production announcements have been made publicly. What exists is a deleted screenshot and the ongoing conversation it created. But 50 Cent has shown in this feud, and across his career, that he rarely makes a move without knowing what the next one looks like. The post may have been deleted, but the idea is now inside the public's head. Every time this feud resurfaces, that title gets mentioned. Every time the 2021 allegations come up in any context, 50 Cent's name now appears alongside them in the conversation. That's not an accident. That's how he operates. The question the internet keeps coming back to is simple. Was the post a genuine signal that the documentary is actually being developed, or was it purely a psychological move designed to remind everyone what the allegations were and put T.I. on defense without 50 having to do anything else? Given his track record, it could be both at the same time. Do you think 50 Cent is actually building this documentary, or was the post just a calculated way to win a news cycle without releasing a single bar? Drop your take in the comments. And if you want more breakdowns on the real moves behind hip-hop's biggest feuds, subscribe and stay locked in.